And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, March 24th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss today. So we're going to start off the show. We will take a look at the games from over the weekend in March Madness, some of the upsets, some of the best games from over the weekend, and we'll take an early look at the Sweet 16 and the matchups coming up later this week. Then, in the second part of the show, more Aaron Rodgers watch, and we actually do have an update that we will discuss, and that's the fact that he went and visited the Steelers. And we'll talk about that, what that means. So, more Aaron Rodgers talk today. Back to everybody's favorite topic, right? So, we'll get into that. Then, in the third part of the show, we'll talk about LeBron James making his return to the Lakers after being out for a couple of weeks due to injury. So, we'll get into that, where the Lakers currently are in the Western Conference standings. Then, we're going to get into my favorite topic of the day that we're going to cover, and that is Jameis Winston signing with the New York Giants. That's right. We are going to get into that and what that means going forward. Really excited to get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we will talk about Jameis's old team, the Cleveland Browns. We will do a season overview on the Cleveland Browns and take a look at what they've done in the offseason. So that's the rundown for the show today. A lot of stuff to cover. So let's get into the first topic now, which is talking about March Madness from over the weekend. So I will say the round of 32 games were very entertaining. A lot of the games were very entertaining. We did get some blowouts in the first round. Also, not a ton of upsets. Not a ton of upsets over the course of these first two rounds. I mean, you had McNeese, but we did see Arkansas knock off St. John's. John Calipari picks up a win against Rick Pitino. But, like I said, not a ton of upsets. Now, we did almost get the 12 seed Colorado State knock off Maryland, who was a 4 seed. We did get close to seeing that because they hit a clutch shot towards the end of the game to put themselves up by 2. Or by, actually, no, was it by 2 or by 1? It was to go up by 1. Jalen Lake hit a 3-pointer with 7 seconds left. And I had Maryland advancing, so I was like, all right, I guess that's probably going to be a loss then. And then Derek Queen at the end of the game hit a 2-point shot at the buzzer to win the game, 72-71. And Maryland moves on. And we avoided another upset. So, but that was a very good game. The Friday games that happened, actually we'll go back to Friday really quickly. So, on Friday, you had Baylor Mississippi State. That was an entertaining game. Baylor ended up winning 75-72, so 9 beat an 8. Robert Morris gave Alabama all they can handle. They hung around in that game. I think they had the lead late at one point. But Alabama was able to come away with the win. They ended up defeating Robert Morris 90-81. Iowa State, they won their matchup big, 82-55. Colorado State upset Memphis. They upset the 5 seed. So, but they were close to upsetting the 4 seed, but they didn't. But yeah, they won 78-70. Duke was all over Mount St. Mary's. Then you had St. Mary's defeating Vanderbilt 59-56. That was a close game. Ole Miss, they defeated UNC. I had UNC going to the Sweet 16. They got knocked out. Maryland beat Grand Canyon 81-49. Grand Canyon did win a game last year in the tournament, and I thought in my main bracket I thought I had them advancing again, but I turns out I had Maryland. So thankfully I you know I had that game right. Florida won their matchup. Kentucky. I did pick New Mexico to beat Marquette. Got that one right. I had Marquette in my Final Four last year. Thankfully, didn't have that this year. Arizona over Akron. UConn defeated Oklahoma. Illinois over Xavier. Michigan State over Bryant. And then Oregon all over Liberty, 81-52. Then on Saturday, so we get to Saturday, Purdue defeated McNeese. And that was actually the coach's last game, Will Wade. That was his last game at McNeese. Signed a contract. Going to be coaching elsewhere next year. And he was very emotional at the end of the game, in the locker room talking to his team. They knew this was coming. They played well against Clemson. I mean, Clemson almost came back in the first round, but, they just ran into a better team. Purdue was up big for the most part. It ended up being, a little bit closer. Well, I mean, it was still a 14-point game, but still, did narrow the gap a bit towards the end, but yeah, Purdue was able to come away with the win, but that was emotional for them. McNeese losing that game, so Purdue advanced. Arkansas St. John's was entertaining. I did pick Arkansas in the game. I did want to talk about that game a little bit more. So yeah, St. John's not great shooting the basketball on Saturday. Also, free throws. They shot 71%. Not bad, but not great either. They went 2 for 2. Both teams actually were horrendous from the 3-point line. St. John's shot 9% from 3-point range, and Arkansas was 10, basically 10.5% from 3-point range. They were 2 for 19. St. John's was 2 for 22. St. John's out-rebounded Arkansas, but yeah, and the other thing too is they were talking to Rick Pitino at the end of the game, because R.J. Lewis only had 9 points in the game. He shot 3 for 17, and there were a lot of memes about that. It's like, oh, he shot the day to St. Patrick's Day 3 for 17. He was over 3 from the field, or from 3-point range. And they were talking to Pitino at the end of the game because they took him out. And Pitino was basically saying, like, look, you didn't have a good day, and he had to make a change. But it was a tough matchup, and this is what a lot of people were talking about going into the tournament, right? Because people were saying that St. John's could be a team that can make a deep run, or they could be a team that gets knocked out in the first 2 rounds. And I picked Arkansas because of Calipari. That was really the reason why, and also just because of everything I was hearing with St. John's. And I was pulling for St. John's, but at the same time, I was like, well, I also have Arkansas in my bracket, so and I have them going to. I actually have Arkansas going to the Elite Eight. Anthony in the chat, hope everything is all good with you. Of the games that have happened in March Madness, are there any point guards or guards into that I should be watching out for as a Heat fan that I could pair with Tyler Hero so we can move to shooting guard? Well, I don't know where the Heat are picking. That's number one. And I'll be honest, I like what I saw from the players from Florida, of course, because what a great game yesterday with Florida and UConn, knocking off UConn. They don't go for the three-peat. Also with the Auburn-Creighton game, I did have Creighton going far, but I had them going to the Elite Eight. They ended up losing. I don't know who's coming out of the draft. I mean, Pettiford had a really good game, but he's only a freshman. So, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know off the top of my head who is, going to be in the draft. I mean, we know Cooper Flagg, of course, but, he's not going to be going to the Heat. So, yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I have to take a deep dive into who's going to be in the NBA draft. But yeah, Arkansas, St. John's. St. John's goes down, but credit to them. Great season, and hopefully, they could be even better next year. Um, Anthony says, according to most of the lottery simulators, we're going to be picking number 6. Okay. All right. So, I think 6 is a good pick to have with the NBA. It's a lot different compared to the NFL, right? Because if you're picking, later in the draft, later in the first round, you're not getting, you might not be getting a premier player, but, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, how that all shakes out. But Michigan, they knocked off Texas A&M. Like I said, Auburn, they defeated Creighton. BYU over Wisconsin. That game got very dicey towards the end of the game. But BYU was able to come away with the win. So we did have a 6 knockoff of 3. Drake ended up losing to Texas Tech. Houston defeated Gonzaga. That was a close game, but Houston was able to come away with the win. And Houston was winning by a lot for the majority of the game, but then, or a decent margin. But, Gonzaga narrowed the gap. It got close. And then Tennessee, they knocked off UCLA as well. And then yesterday, like I said, Florida knocked off UConn, so UConn does not go for the three-peat. They ended up losing by 2. You had a 3-pointer at the end of the game that made it a 2-point game. But yeah, UConn ends up falling. And actually, what was the stat that I took a screenshot of? So they had a 13-game tournament win streak. That's now over for Dan Hurley and the Huskies. But you know what? They'll be back next year. They will definitely be back. And if they had, Florida has more talent, right? And I think a lot of people would say that Hurley's probably the better coach. So, talent won that game yesterday for the Gators. So, UConn's going to be back next year. I think we can all agree on that. And then, Duke was all over Baylor. They won 89-66. Cooper Flagg in the game yesterday. He had, what was his stats for yesterday? 18 points, went 5 of 11, 1 for 4 from 3. Tyrese Proctor, he was their leading scorer, 25 points on the day. Actually was very efficient, 9 of 10 and 7 of 8 from the 3-point range. And Duke is 33-3 right now on the season. Kentucky defeated the Fighting Illini. Alabama defeated St. Mary's 80-66. We talked about Colorado State and Maryland. Ole Miss 6 knocked off at 3. They defeated Iowa State 91-78. Michigan State, this was a competitive game. The Spartans and the Lobos, but they were able to pick up the win 71-63. They advanced. And then we had the Arizona Wildcats knock off the Oregon Ducks. Some former rivals, but now Oregon is in the Big Ten. Arizona won 87-83. And now we'll take a look at the matchups for Thursday. So you have BYU against Alabama, Maryland against Florida, Arizona against Duke, Arkansas against Texas Tech, and then on Friday you have Ole Miss against Michigan State, Kentucky against Tennessee, Michigan against Auburn, and then Purdue against Houston. So good games coming up later this week, and of course we also have opening day in baseball coming up as well. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the games from over the weekend. What were some of your favorite games? How are your brackets looking? My main bracket is looking pretty good, although Creighton losing, I had them in my Elite Eight. So, yeah, that was we tried to, at least pull off one major upset with Auburn getting knocked off. But they looked good. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. So we are going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers and him meeting with the Steelers. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.